Welcome to Dr. Jester Talks, and I'm gonna talk about this. Well, before I go, it's interesting because today it's not swamp-ass worthy weather, so I can probably endure this a little bit more than usual. At least I don't have a problem of generating swamp, a bayou environment up my bunghole. So, that's always a good thing, and I can get into this news a bit more than usual. So, from New York Post, China flies 18 warplanes near Taiwan during US envoy's visit. Well, at least they were... 1 second. Fuel for my ADHD adult brain. Alright, back to the news. At least they were honest in this, and they didn't say that they flew inside Taiwan's airspace. So let's keep on going. Oh, and by the way, making a comment, I don't think they actually used the J-20s for this, but I'm gonna make a comment in regards to this. At least, when the Chinese stole information and Obama did diddly fucking squat against the Chinese after they hacked Lockheed Martin and other airspace companies, American airspace companies, to steal data and information about stealth airplanes. At least they used the information properly, unlike the goddamn fucking Russians who did the Felon airplane, the Su-57, which was pretty much a goddamn fucking waste. You know, that little bubble they have over here on the front, that's a big no-no for stealth. They don't have any jagged edges on the structure of the airplane, which means they are a bit... Okay, so somebody decided to fly just now. That's the second time I'm recording on the video, which somebody needs to be somewhere. Can't they just go somewhere else? Like, for instance, I don't know. I don't know, somewhere far away from here when I am recording and making this sacrifice, albeit this time without the Bayou environment? Of course not. Of course not. Why? Life has to be easy. No, it has to be hard. Has to be hard. The suffering. Anyway, and their engine, the structure of their engine is kind of a telltale that it's going to be pretty much a radar-loving engine. So much so that it's going to reflect everything because they don't have any protections or S-duct, which is the go-to design for a stealth airplane. And the worst thing is that the Russian boos claim that they have a radar reflection, radar absorption technique, some sort of magical stuff on the engine, when in fact they do not. The closest thing they can actually do or achieve is what the Super Hornet, the F-18E, F, and well, G, has. It's kind of like a grid or like a fence or something that gives some sort of protection against radar beams, but that's just it's not the best solution to it. And on that note, even the FA-18 E and F and G in that case is better stealth airplane than the Su-57, the Felon, or they used to call it the PACFA. Anyway, back to the article. China's military sent 18 planes, including fighter jets, over the Taiwan Strait in an unusually large show of force Friday, as the US envoy held a day of closed-doors meetings on a self-governing island claimed by China. Ah, China, you're such an asshole. You could have contained this pandemic properly, but you didn't. You decided to ignore, to hide information, and do a bunch of other things instead of, well, warning the world, closing your borders, or probably protecting the virus from coming out of the lab. Or that is one of the theories, or at least containing it properly instead of, well, letting somebody eating a bowl of raw bat soup. But no. No. You prefer to do this. Things like this. Ah, China, you're fucking asshole. And the asshole, and not the good type of asshole. Let's drink some more coffee because I feel like I'm gonna need it. And besides getting warm. Under Secretary of State of Keith Krach, who handles the Economic Growth, Energy and Environment portfolio, held talks with Taiwan's Minister of Economic Affairs and Vice Premier. He also met with business leaders over lunch and was to dine with President Tsai Ing-wen later Friday. In response to Krach's visit, Eastern Theater Command of the Chinese Liberation Army held combat exercises near the Taiwan Strait in at least the second round of war games this month aimed at intimidating supporters of the island's independent identity. I fully 100% support Taiwan, so go fuck yourself, China. And you can have that on a record. The Taiwan's defense ministry said 2 bombers and 16 fighter jets from China crossed into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Of course they did. It said in scrambled jet in response and monitored the movements of the Chinese planes. At least this doesn't mean, or technically means, it is Taiwanese airspace, but let's keep going. Chinese Defense Minister spokesman Ren Guogyong called the drills a legitimate and necessary action taken in response to the current situation across the Taiwan Strait to safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Dude, nobody wants to live in a goddamn communist shithole. Much less the people living in Taiwan, because they fled the communist shithole that China became after the Civil War, sponsored by, well, the commies and Soviet Union, and they pretty much destroyed and killed millions upon millions of people. And what do you want to do? You want to kill more people? Because, quite frankly, this time after this genocide, communism will work. Guaranteed. Chinese defense minister spokesman. Okay, already read that. Recently, the US and Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party authorities have stepped up their collusion and frequently stirred up troubles, Ren told reporters Friday morning. Whether it is using Taiwan to contain China or rely on foreign powers to threaten others it is wishful thinking and is destined to be a dead end. In a brief statement on its microblog, the Eastern Theater Command said the exercises involved naval and air forces units in the Taiwan Strait, aimed at gauging their ability to carry out joint operations. That's bullshit. Y'all know what they wanted to show. China Minister of Foreign Affairs also defended the move. Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said China has been the firm will but full confidence and sufficient ability to thwart all external interference and separatist actions by Taiwan independence forces. Beijing views Taiwan as part of its own territory and strongly opposes any type of formal interaction between other countries and self-rule island democracy. Yes, they are so goddamn hell-bent on this that they even threaten the Olympics and World Cups or any other things that decides to show the Taiwanese flag or even decide to recognize Taiwan. They refuse it. They absolutely refuse it, and they will throw a major hissy fit if you even decide to show that. And the worst thing is that China doesn't give a shit about these people. Let's keep going. Beijing views Taiwan as part of its own territory. Crane's trip follows a visit in August by U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar, the highest level U.S. cabinet official to visit the visit since the US switched formal relations from Taiwan to China in 1979, and I believe this was a major mistake in US policy. It is one of a series of moves by Trump administration to strengthen relations with Taiwan, which is the right and correct China, the one that supports freedom, including stepped-up arms sales and support for the island's participation in international forums. And they should, because they warned us that China was fucking things up with the pandemic, but nobody listened to them. Before Craft's arrival, the US ambassador to the United Nations, Kelly Craft, had lunch Wednesday with Taiwan's top official in New York in a meeting she called historic. Okay, this is a very long article. On Saturday, the last visit to Crash also attended the memorial. Okay, let's move on. Analyst says the Chinese military response in a clear message to the US to stop what it is doing, since the Chinese side took similar actions when the US Health Secretary visited in August. I think the Chinese are using this tool to try and stop the kind of diplomatic relations between US and Taiwan. It is very clear to them. Tensions between Washington. Let's move on. Okay, let's see this one. This seems interesting. The frequency of Chinese exercises near Taiwan recalls the last major crisis between them in 1995 and 96, when China fired missiles near the island and held war games in a bid to intimidate voters in Taiwan's first direct presidential election. Those actions were largely seen to have backfired. Like I said, China, and even I think China will never ever admit any of this, that it backfired, because China has a very weird obsession about their reputation worldwide. Taiwan said Chinese warplanes entered its airspace over 2 days last week during an... Oh, so it did enter its Taiwanese airspace. Oh shit, this is bad. But then again, that actually has a tendency to happen around those countries. Russia keeps doing that over the NATO countries and NATO waters. And before you call, but the US is in there. No. The US is in there as a contractual obligation of NATO. NATO is an alliance, and those countries allow the US to be there. In fact, they beg the US to be there because the US will then stop the goddamn fucking Russians from invading those countries again, like they are doing in Ukraine, Moldova, and other countries around in that region. In fact, they are so goddamn tired of the Russians meddling that place because, well, they are kind of experienced a bit of Russian, let's say, kind of experienced the Russians in the past in kind of like a big, huge genocide that happened again, I don't know, just after the Second World War, after the Russians took that region. But I digress. Taiwan, Jesus Christ, I keep hitting my microphone. Taiwan said Chinese warplanes said, China has increasingly relied on military threats and diplomatic isolation to pressure Taiwan. That follows the apparent failure of its efforts to win over the island's 23 million people to the prospect of political unification under the one country, two system framework used in Hong Kong, with a large majority of Taiwanese favoring maintaining the status quo of de facto independence. Well, let me put this way. One country, two systems did not work. We can see that on Hong Kong. People are protesting what is happening in Hong Kong. And what China does, they actually attack people. They force the police, the local police in Hong Kong, to quell those protests. And then they now want the extradition of people who are critical of the Chinese authoritarian dictatorship, which is a major fucking shithole. Fuck China. Let these people be free. Free Hong Kong, free Taiwan. You can have that on a record, too. On the record. Let's keep going. Despite the frequency of exercises, the exercise says it does not mean imminent war. I agree, it does not mean imminent war. It just means that China is a goddamn fucking asshole. The signal from Beijing is very, very clear, but does that mean a prelude to war? No, far from it, said Chongping Ling, a former deputy defense minister in Taiwan. I agree. China cut contacts with Taiwan's government following Tsai's 2016 election. She was re-elected by a large margin this year, and her Democratic Progressive Party maintained its majority in the legislature. If I recall correctly from that time on the election, this is a party which actually hates China, or at least not in a hate in itself. It just means that they do not like what China is doing, or they want to distance themselves from the communists in China. And China is a very repressive regime that nobody wants to live in there. It's kind of like, well, the communist dream coming true, right? And there you go. Anyway, I have dragged on in this video far longer, but it's a kind of an interesting thing because it allowed me to keep talking about all those things. And I kind of like messing around with the military equipment. Probably I should create a new section or a new program or segment on my channel about military equipment and all those things. Maybe. But it should be pretty much on low budget and low effort kind of deal, like this video. It means that I shouldn't waste too much time editing and showing things that probably nobody is going to watch. And on that note, that was kind of also a relief because the weather allowed me to do this without the Bayou type of weather down in my pants. So that's always a good thing. Yeah. Thank you for watching. See you on my next video. Good night.